Sziasztok, Viki vagyok.
Hi everyone, I'm Viki. This is the aquarium I built recently. If you're curious how I created this aquarium with the floating trees, then come along and join me. The aquarium I'm about to build is actually inspired by an old green aqua layout. If I remember correctly, Lush was the one who created it, and it was built in a 650-liter tank. It was made using Indian petrified wood, and now I'd like to recreate something visually similar, but using a new type of wood. It's Weo's Dragonscale wood. I'll be using quite a few pieces, so I hope you have time, because we'll be gluing things together until tomorrow.
Holnapig itt ragaszgatunk majd.
The base of the aquarium will be Dracula stone. I'll use it partly as support, and partly to weigh down the wooden structure.
Aha, ez sokáig tartott ez a...
The aquarium itself is a standard 60-liter tank. It's a 60 by 30 by 36 centimeter ADA glass. The ADA powers an advanced S size is perfectly sufficient as the nutrient layer for this tank. From here, I pull the substrate forward and level it out. Because as Homasan recently taught us, you can only paint well on a nicely even canvas. I'll also create a slight slope toward the back, so the soil level will be higher there. This gives the aquarium a bit more optical depth. At the front, I try to keep the layer as thin as possible. This isn't quite the OCD flat level yet. I'll keep working on it a bit more. I'm placing the stones roughly for now, because the real foundation of this whole thing will be the Dragonscale wood structure that creates the depth in the layout. The rocks are really just there to give it a base and add weight. See, I put it down and already can't remember how it was before. I've built this 3 times so far, and all 3 ended up looking completely different. I've never made an aquarium that required this much gluing. We'll see if it collapses or doesn't collapse, or somehow stays in one piece. It might even become an actual aquarium in the end. If I've done my job right, I should be able to lift the stone by holding the wood.
Ta-da!
1 down out of about 625. There's this fluffy stuff too, right? As you can see, we now use this Riverist Fast Fusion compound in the videos instead of regular paper towels. The reason is that paper towels are white, and we've also found that this material grips the glued parts much better and holds them nicer.
És jobban is tart.
I'm trying to find at least 2 strong connection points where the decorations meet, but honestly, wherever I find even the tiniest spot, I'm going to fill it with glue and binder.
Kérhetek ide valami széket? Ez hosszabb lesz. Nagyon szépen köszönöm.
Én nem tudom, hogy is akkor.
Ó, de jó. Wow.
I won't say I'm not scared it'll fall apart. How does it look from the front? Does it look like anything at all?
Whoops.
I'm trying not to shatter the glass, okay? I could really use a couple more hands. I'd probably be more coordinated. I actually enjoy filming. As Christmas approaches, winter is always the busier season in the shop.
És nyilván, igen.
And yes, having a little creative task like this is really uplifting.
Feladatot végezhet.
This glue doesn't smell very pleasant. We could make a compilation of how my nose wrinkles for the 62nd time. When I started working here at Green Aqua 8 years ago, I had absolutely no aquarium-related experience. Slowly, the guys taught me everything, the basics of aquascaping, how to build things properly, water chemistry, the importance of filtration, the role of carbon dioxide, everything.
És hát nyilván beleszerettem.
And of course, I fell in love with it. I wouldn't still be here after 8 years if I didn't love it. I hope we can spread that enthusiasm to others too.
Arra kell most nagyon figyelnem.
Now, I really have to focus on making sure every branch I glue together forms perfectly straight lines, not even slightly crooked. Otherwise, the whole thing will look like it's falling apart, and the hardscape won't be uniform.
Szemre szét fog esni az egész. Segítség!
Why isn't this sticking here? It's way too early for me to start getting impatient.
Nem hallottatok semmit. Amit előre...
What fits nicely in the front will become a kind of central structure here. Trust me, this will turn into a pretty cool aquarium in the end. It'll look something like this. It comes forward a bit here, then moves slightly backward there. This piece will sit more toward the back. Of course, I also have to make sure there's at least a hand's width of space all around, so our maintenance crew doesn't scold me.
A karbantartónktól ne kapjak ki. Ez a legnagyobb probléma.
My biggest problem is that 2 hands aren't enough. That's the issue. I had a nightmare about it last night, about how I'm going to glue it together. And it held. I can't believe it.
Ez nem lett egyenes.
This didn't turn out straight. I'm not the only one who sees this, right?
Na most az a helyzet...
So, even though I just said this has to be straight, it isn't. So I'm taking it apart.
Úgyhogy én ezt most szét fogom szedni.
I glued it so well that it didn't come off at the glue, but broke off a piece of wood. This will be good somewhere around here.
Na.
Can anyone help me hold this?
A dolognak az lesz még...
The tricky part is still ahead. It's one thing that out here, I can reach everything from every angle. But once I try to assemble this inside the aquarium, that'll be the fun part.
Ó, milyen könnyű, amikor...
How easy it is when all you have to do is attach 2 tiny pieces together.
Könnyű munka. Meg vagyok vele pikk és pak. Ez annyira jó. Most azt nézem, hogy...
Now I'm trying to figure out how I could attach a stone to it so it stays down, because this piece of wood would be completely freestanding otherwise.
Betonra megkötött, nagyon jó.
Na, kész.
Drágám, odébb lesz ez a felkiáltás. De még kell a kettő közé valami.
I still need something between the two, otherwise it won't stand up straight.
Cause I wanna participate in the happy parade. I slap a smile across my face, get so
Ez a maradékon kéne még ragasztóanyag.
the freckles form as I'm giving in. That's all fitting in.
Kis szolid mennyiségű.
We're using a lot of adhesive and binder to make sure everything holds for sure. You've probably noticed that I fiddled with the soil so much that the entire nutrient layer came up to the surface. I actually planned to cover it with Amazonia anyway, because these exposed granules, you can see them clearly here, can't stay on top. If they did, a very strong, highly concentrated burst of nutrients would be released into the water, and that would definitely lead to algae.
Nem fogok már variálni.
I'm not going to keep tweaking things. I'm gluing the whole structure together now. Well, these 2 sections at least, because they're still moving around separately. There's a gap here, and without touching the upper arch visually, this little piece of wood slides behind it and creates depth.
Onnan indultunk.
Originally, the whole thing was planned as one continuous arch, Everything would curve toward the next part in a single flow. But we ended up changing it, so the decorations will be arranged in 3 separate sections, offset from each other in depth.
Mélységben, eltolásban.
We have one completely separate piece. It won't connect to the others at all. That's the one in the back right. Then I'll have a middle section and this left section. Originally, the left and middle were connected here, but that made the rear middle area of the aquarium look too empty. And with the pieces separated like this, the sense of depth will be much better. Technically, they'll be glued here together, but essentially, we have 1, 2, 3 individual decorative structures.
És alul látjátok.
And as you can see below, I attached the base of each wood structure to larger stones. Otherwise, the whole thing would float. Without the stones, the entire wooden composition would just pop up to the surface.
Faépítmény. Az a bajom, hogy nem fog elférni a lámpa. Nagyon jó. Akkor én ezt...
Can I glue this together like this now? There really isn't much left to do, guys. As I said, you can still see the nutrient layer popping out in several spots. I need to cover that, and that's what I'm going to do now.
Arra jutottam, hogy...
Looking at the whole thing from the front, I realized that this stone here isn't looking that great. So I figured it might look nicer if I added a small piece of wood on top of it somehow. I'll probably start with the plants that go into the substrate, because while I'm reaching around inside the tank, I would definitely knock off any plants already attached to the wood or rocks. What I want to plant into the soil are mostly Helanthium tenellum green, some Helanthium tenellum quadricostatus, and here in the middle, you can see a bit of Cryptocorin parva. These will be distributed throughout the front. Since they're all long, grass-like plants, they'll fill the area nicely, and the parva will go into the shadier spots. Cryptocorin species handle low light much better, and they'll also help break up the monotony of the carpet a little, which will look great. I always tease Tommy about how he plants things. Half of them float up afterward, so I have to plant in a way that absolutely nothing floats.
Nekem egyébként ez a kedvenc részem.
This is actually my favorite part of building an aquarium, because the pressure is gone compared to when you're working on the hardscape, since that's the foundation of everything. This part is the zen part. You get into a bit of a flow, just poking the plants into place. You know, when they actually stay down, of course.
Már amikor lemaradnak, ugye? És most jön az a rész, amikor...
Now comes the part where you need all kinds of twisted arm positions to reach between the decorations.
Az még majd kérdés lesz.
I'm still curious how much light will reach the plants between the trees. We planted the wood quite loosely, and there'll be a strong ADA light above it, so I'm hoping it'll be fine.
Úgyhogy remélem, hogy jó lesz. Nem tudom, látszik-e?
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm starting to get lazy. The clumps of plants I'm tearing off are getting bigger and bigger.
A quadricostatus...
The quadricostatus doesn't have a fixed spot. I'm just poking it in randomly among the regular Helanthium tenellum green. That randomness will give the whole aquarium a more natural look. And now comes the cryptoparva.
Nem fér oda a kezem sehogy. Kezd egész jól lenni a helyzet. Most jönnek.
Now I'm moving on to the epiphyte plants, which I'll attach to the hardscape, partly to hide all these glue marks and these glue marks, and partly so the whole thing will look beautiful once it grows in. I'll be using Anubias mini coin, some Anubias pangolino, and Bucephalandra mini needle leaf.
Látsz még valahol olyat, amit nem takartam el? Ragasztást. Aha, köszönöm. fának a tetejére
I plan to put weeping moss on the top of the wood. I won't glue the moss on in big chunks as it is. I'm going to cut it into tiny pieces with scissors, because that way it grows much nicer and becomes fuller over time.
Weeping mossnak van egy olyan nagy...
Weeping moss has this amazing characteristic. If you let it grow, it develops in these beautiful downward hanging strands, and that will be absolutely perfect for this scape.
Nyilván most még...
Of course, right now, you can still see that the moss portions look a bit weak and tiny. It won't look great immediately. It'll take some time. In about 4 to 5 weeks, the moss will grow and thicken up enough to look really beautiful. But don't worry, at the end of this video, you'll see the final result, how it looks once everything is grown in properly.
Készen van az akvárium.
The aquarium is done. Don't go anywhere, because in just a moment, you'll see what the aquarium looks like after 4 to 5 weeks. Once the plants have filled in, the moss has grown lush and thick, and everything has matured. I hope you'll all like it.
Úgyhogy remélem, hogy mindenkinek tetszeni fog. Itt vagyunk egy hónappal később.
Here we are 1 month later. The plants still have plenty of growing to do. As we mentioned before, the mosses will eventually become much fuller, and the weeping moss will start developing that nice, downward-hanging, cascading effect in the aquarium. We're not quite there yet, but everything is growing nicely. Thank God, the tank seems to be algae-free. As far as I know, we haven't had any problems with it. Luckily, all the glue is still holding everywhere, thanks to those many hours of gluing and all the binder we used. As you can see, the livestock has also been added, and I chose very tiny fish so they wouldn't ruin the sense of scale in the aquarium. These are the least rasbora. They look really nice. They're hiding a bit now, but as they get braver, they'll show more color and look even better.
Ha most újra kezdeném,
If I were to rebuild this aquarium now, I'd do a few things differently. When you look at the tank, it feels full. Visually, it works. But when I photograph the scape, the side panels of the glass have almost no reflection at all, and makes the whole layout feel slightly narrower than the actual tank width. To counter this effect a bit, I planted extra plants on both sides. They weren't part of the original scape. This is Helanthium acicularis, which I added to the sides. You'll see it here. It'll keep growing taller and denser, and it will fill that space nicely. So once again, if I were to start over, I would also add a couple of extra small wood pieces to the edges of the two side trees. It would make maintenance harder, yes, but visually, it would definitely add to the layout.
hozzáadna a látványhoz mindenképpen.
The plants are growing really well. You can see how the foreground plants are thickening beautifully. Both Helanthium species are doing incredibly well and are pretty much taking over the whole tank. I'm a little worried they might eventually hide all the intricate details of the hardscape, but if needed, we can support the layout with a few extra stones later. The epiphytes are growing nicely too. Thankfully, we haven't had any melting. All the plants stayed exactly where we put them. No issues at all with the aquarium so far. Everything has been growing steadily. Epiphytes don't grow aggressively, of course, but that's one of the reasons we love them.
Szerencsére egy teljes adaszettet.
I was lucky enough to get a full ADA setup temporarily for this build, so the plants really have the best conditions. A strong ADA light above, a Superjet 600 filtering the tank, and of course, we're diffusing carbon dioxide. The plant's current state is also thanks to fertilizing. We're using Green Aqua's balance and carbon fertilizers.
Kiegészítésként. Úgy érzem, hogy ez egy elég nagy...
To be honest, this was quite a big challenge for me when I started. I wasn't sure I could achieve the effect I imagined with the hardscape, or that it would even stay together, let alone look good. But in the end, everything came together as a whole, and I'm satisfied with it. We spent about 6 hours gluing everything. That's how long the hardscape took, plus the planting. It was fun.
Jó buli volt. Kérlek, ha gondoljátok...
Please let us know in the comments what you think about the aquarium. If you have any tips on what I could have done differently, besides what I already mentioned, feel free to share them with us. If you want to watch more 60p aquarium videos, click here. Thanks for being here. Goodbye.
Köszi, hogy itt voltatok. Sziasztok!